Hello guys! Welcome back to Not Just Mecha! It's Marco here, and today we speed paint a full warband of Shaolin vampires. And please, someone make a B-movie about Shaolin vampires! One of my New Year's resolutions is to play more. At the moment, mostly warcry and kill team, with a sprinkle of Forbidden Psalm. And I have a long list of warbands from every system that I want to add to my ranks. So let me know in the comments what you want to see next, because as a completist, I want them all. And right now, I cannot really choose where to start.
Well, I don't know where to go only after these guys. Because I can't resist the concept of monastic martial artist vampires turned quote-unquote good. Following this concept, the parameters I gave myself are: I want them clean, the GW box art kind of clean. I want them light and bright, the we are the good guys kind of bright. I want them quickly, the I have a game night in 2 days / I have to publish a video in 5 days kind of fast. And of course, I want them to look great. The my models have to be the coolest on the table kind of great. Let's start from priming. That, as you know, around here it's never just a boring mandatory chore, but one of the most incredible tools to boost both efficiency and storytelling. It doesn't matter if you're painting for gaming or display, this overlooked step is always there. And this very first step sets your work on a visual chain of events that will influence every other subsequent choice. The plan is to make them unmistakably, heroically glowing, so there is no reason to start from a black primer that can only dull my bright, saturated tones, and in general, make the physical work more complicated, especially for the orange core of the scheme. A warm mid-value brown is perfect to sustain this kind of light modulation and establish the general warmth of the tropical jungle setting of this warcry block of story. But as I said, this is a mid-value brown. That's perfect to support everything falling into the mid-values range, so I still need a few deep shadows. And this is another reason to avoid a black primer. Shadows are never pure black, and even if sometimes in real life they are kind of black, in the augmented, aestheticized reality of fantasy and sci-fi, I have the freedom to render them in a way more interesting and cool-looking deep cold violet. I could push the temperature contrast even more, using a warm blue, or even a proper cold blue. But I want the scene and the general environmental feel to be quite warm. So an ambiguous cold violet coming out from the burgundy brown is cold enough, mostly thanks to the magic of simultaneous contrast. From here, I can start my climb to lighter and lighter territories. That will be the base for my vibrant tones, and the actual colors of pale skins and white hair. I set the first step of the ladder with a zenithal application of an opaque ink. That's more or less a tanned Caucasian skin tone. Again, warm on warm, over a slightly colder warm hue, to keep the general tropical theme. Then I move to a lighter skin tone. I could have mixed a bit of white ink with the Terra Rossa Schminke ink, but I really like the trusty semi-opacity of this particular color. So I jump straight from a bottle to another one. That, for how much I love mixing custom tones from a limited palette, in terms of speed and efficiency, it's a great speed painting option. The important note here is that I'm creeping on this value and tonal climb, because even if at the moment this looks like a colored value sketch, this is not a sketch. Here I'm literally painting the final basic tones of undead skins, white hair, fabric and bones. And this, combined with my aiming for a clean, smooth, heavy metal finish, compels me into being more gentle and progressive. In a simple chromatic sketch, I would have gone directly with pure white over the burgundy primer. And at this point, a gentle pass of titanium white shouldn't be a surprise. Again, I don't use it for the values that are already in the pure white territory. Here, I just want a few bits in literal pure white. Every single tone until this point has been used straight from its bottle to the airbrush. And because of their chromatic compatibility and progression, both procedural and visual on the model, I don't even flash the airbrush between colors. So this whole stage is super quick. And since there is always someone commenting, "But this way you lost the violet." Well, no, I didn't. The violet sensation is precisely where I wanted it, in the terminal, deepest shadows. This whole progression is based on the idea of positive, bright, diffused light, so I don't need more than that. But I still need it in these small, localized quantities at the end of the value scale. For a more nocturnal or dramatic light setting, you can change the order of operations, and maybe paint the shadows as the last bit, so they will be more visible and dominant. But before moving to the transparent applications that will benefit from this structural work, I want to solve the opaque bits. Simply because if I mess up something while layering super covering paint, both the potential mistakes and the foundational base are really quick and easy to fix. And I start with my trademarked, fluid, contrast-like metallic mix that combines the unbeatable saturation and staining power of inks with the opacity of fine, metallic silver paint. Here the mix doesn't need any additives, retarders or mediums, because since on these really small parts, I'm not using the underlying sketch to get volumetric information. I can simply go with the natural, full opacity of the recipe. The advantages of the mix here come from the general fluidity that makes the paint a pleasure to move around. From the precious for speed painting, one pass covering power, and because of the unbalance / incompatibility between metallic and non-metallic pigments, from its magical finish when dry, of a metallic layer with a defining wash on top, but all in a single application. Similar idea for the black parts, that are painted with a bluish Payne's Grey, diluted with contrast Black Legion, mostly to get an interesting satin finish, jumping out from all the matte, and a bit of that contrast passive ability of creating subtle differences between raised elements and recesses. Really useful on hair and sports bras. Luckily, they sell those even in the endless living forest. Ooh, or maybe it's a Stormcast Amazon, and the stuff is delivered with lightning bolts. Time for transparency, and the punch of orange that I cannot wait to see glowing at the center of the skim. To make this super staining and slightly too opaque orange more suitable for this application, and my general preference for more gentle and transparent colors, I mix it with a super fluid medium, made precisely to break the surface tension of paint, that unlocks long and super fluid brushstrokes, and a classic acrylic retarder that prevents unwanted stains and patches and gives me more time to move paint around in a more relaxed way. If you want a more natural kind of orange, a couple of passes over the warm ivory beige base are more than enough for a saturated but still realistic orange fabric. But here I'm aiming to a fantasy, kind of comic book, in-your-face kind of orange. So I boost its vibrancy with a quick pass of yellow ink with the airbrush. The last external layer of every overlapped application is always the visually more powerful. So, laying yellow on top of orange and not using it as a preparatory underlayer passively enhances its power and dominance. And I use the airbrush because this is not a general filter, but I want a more precise localization of the yellow on top of the most prominent folds and large open areas exposed to light to create even more movement and internal eye-catching variations. All the other bits and little elements are simply painted with pure contrast. Some in a totally straightforward way, taking advantage of the smoothness and the chromatic properties of the base layers that automatically create a bunch of contrast between raised details and recesses. And some, like the bases and the bits of organic armors, are painted in more creative ways. Basically, if I need to paint something small and with a very precise, undisputable color, like the poppy red of the heraldry, I go straight from the bottle. But if I want to render the moving, more random and unpredictable natural flow of organic stuff, I use pools of tones that, mixed in small batches, that I have to frequently refill and renew, will come out somewhat coherent, because made from the same basic ingredients, but never really the same. And here is again the beauty of working with the extreme flexibility of transparent tones. The plan was good, and the result is really good, especially in terms of vibrancy and saturations. But chasing that light, vibrant, clean result, I feel that I've lost something from the shadows. but only from cloaks and skirts that don't have stronger undercuts and didn't get the more intense automatic shadows of other sharper parts and angles. A quick pass of pure magenta solves everything. Why magenta? Because it is at the end of the warm spectrum, and optically mixed with yellow is able to produce all these colors, and in their maximum saturation. Overlapping magenta to what I have here, everything remains super vibrant, gets a myriad of extra complex in-between shades, and becomes that bit darker that makes my shadows count more in the final balance. Time for a quick detour on oil paints that I'm not going to use, as you are probably expecting. I really like my colors and their vibrancy, and these organic subjects and sculpts don't need any quick panel lining or super sharp dark definition, so no general washes here, but localized, proper oil painting. To remain in a chromatic range harmonious with the skin, I use a dark cold blue and an orangey brown to mix a rich greyish green that I use to stain the canvas of the pale skins. This step sets a subtle, specific hue, automatically brings out a few details, like fingers and basic facial features, and makes the blending of the next layer smoother, more progressive, and, because of the oil stain, physically easier. I still remove a bit of excess to avoid too much mixing between colors and get cleaner, starker highlights. That I quickly paint with pure white, a particularly bright and glowing kind of white. With a dry, clean, small, pointy brush, I apply pure white on the models, straight from its tube, and putting it directly in the spots where the light is at its peak. And with a dry, clean, small, stiffer flat brush, I gently spread the paint all around, creating the blend. Yep, just like that. Nothing beats oils in painting quick, soft, super smooth, skin-like highlights. And with a bit of practice and control, you can do this on any size of model or detail. The only limits here are training and your own hand. At this point, we are at the top of the hill. The climb is done, and the quote-unquote hard part is behind us. With this complexity in place, that, for the most part, automatically generated itself from the overlap of visual information, I just need a single set of sharp highlights to increase the general definition, add some cool details, and bring everything to box art standards. a bright blue-silver for the edges of armors and weapons, a bit of dark gold on the tangent of the light for the few bronze elements, a few touches of red on the bits of heraldry, enhanced in a few raised, meaningful places here and there by a super localized application of an even lighter and more vibrant red. And of course, pure white on bones, white hair, and a few bits of white fabric. I don't touch the skin in this phase. The skins have been completed in the oil step, and because of their softer nature and the good amount of nice definition I already have, I really don't feel the need for anything else. I never really use clean, sharp lines for these highlights, especially on fantasy models. Movement and textures are more interesting, and ironically, more easily achievable. The model of the Pariah is amazing, and my favorite in the warband. So, because of its uniqueness in the squad, and because I really like it, I've worked on it a tiny bit more. Without adding too many new tones, I tie the hide on the left with the wings of the bat, using a base of magenta, cut and highlighted with ivory and white. The work on the black hood is a simple grayscale, softened and warmed by the use of ivory. And I use what I have on the palette to make the fur more rich and interesting. I know it's not fair, but again, she's special to me. I close the work with my favorite part and a final punch of light and vibrance. Very much like the stiff edge highlighting of the GW style. In this render, there is no pretense or attempt to create proper realism. So I can't really call this texturing, but it's still kind of a texturing process. We can call it comic book texturing. In the distance of the field, these strokes will make a marginal impact, still gently framing the shapes like an edge highlight, but in a softer and more realistic way, at least for fabric and soft materials. But this is precisely one of the things that differentiates a speed painting from a high-quality speed painting, aka there is no loss of wow effect when you pick up the models. Choosing well what to keep and what to sacrifice to the altar of speed should be an essential part of an army painter's process. And with the help of solid color theory, a few technical tricks, and the choice of the right battles to fight, you can totally have quality and speed. And here is the final result. because of a few unique models and the bit of disruption to the assembly line flow they introduce, the many different parts of the sculpts and their small size that made me work mostly with the brush. I closed the work at about 7 hours, so for sure below my average. But for the ancestral commission painting part of my brain, if I stay under the hour per model, I deserve a treat. I'll be honest with you, for a while I didn't have the chance to play, and I've lost a bit the drive for this kind of painting. You can see from the timeline of videos that the last warband is from 6 months ago. But now that the game night is back, this is all I can think of. Please keep me on track. And let me know if I go overboard with these videos.
If you like this video, give it a like and subscribe. Remember that you can ask me anything down below with a comment, and you can follow my projects during the week using one of my socials. And if you want to support my work, check my Patreon page and join the community, or maybe ask for a commission. See you next week, guys!